At 16 I decided I wanted to see the world and go somewhere in life, so I joined the Navy. And I became an apprentice shipbuilder in the Navy, and I progressed through. And after I'd been to sea for a couple of years, the Navy decided to send me ashore. They sent me to a little depot in Melbourne. I didn't want to go there. However, after I got there, I didn't know a person in Melbourne, but I met this very young girl called Lynn, and we took a shine to each other fairly quickly. And after about 6 weeks, we'd already decided that we were going to get married. Well, in actual fact, she decided that. However, one night we were just talking about things, and we were asking ourselves personal questions, and I asked her what religion she was. And she came back with the astonishing answer, "I'm the same religion as you." I said, "Well, how do you know that?" And she said, "Oh, I got your records out," because she was a medical sailor and she had access to my records, and so she had already worked out that I was an Anglican, and she was very pleased about that. So we got married, and both of us weren't into all that much into going to church. We eventually bought a home here at Engadine, and then Lynn was. We were both working hard still, and then as life started to slow up a bit, and Lynn started to ease off work, she was looking for other involvements. At first, she got involved with the Salvation Army church, with their organisation doing volunteer work. And then one day she came up and she says, "Oh, I'm going to go to 7 o'clock church." Now, I didn't have a clue where she was going to. She said, "I'm going to 7 o'clock church." Right, okay. Yeah, I'm not even sure how she did it. I think she probably just went past and read the board, and so she started going to 7 o'clock church, and then she started getting involved in all the activities in the church. And then Sarah, my granddaughter, she got involved in Kids Plus, and then Lynn got involved in Kids Plus, and then she seemed to be 3 or 4 times a week. She just seemed to be coming up to the church, and during those times she kept nudging at me all the time. "How about coming to church with me?" And I kept promising her to come to church, and I always found a reason why not. You know, I used to ring my brother up on Sunday nights. "Oh, there's a good football match on." I mean, the list is long. Yeah, and I probably, I think probably on occasion I may have even got a little bit short. Not really upset, but she was trying to nudge me in a position where I didn't want to go. Anyhow, about 6 months before we went away on our Arnhem Land trip, one night we were just sitting up there, we were watching TV. Oh, well, I might say the TV set was on, and I was editing photos, and she was knitting, and then I saw she was starting to get a bit teary, and I said, "What's up, darling?" And she said, "You're not going to heaven with me." Wow. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You're not a Christian." And I said, "What makes you say that I'm not a Christian?" I said, "How do you know that I'm not a Christian?" "Something you said." I said, "What did I say?" She said, "I'm not telling you." "Well, come on, tell me what you said." She says, "I'm not telling you." And she never ever did tell me what I'd said. I never ever found out the answer to that. However, we just sort of agreed not to sort of say anything more about it, and I thought about it after a while, and it was starting to gnaw away at me. You know, wow, not going to be with her in heaven. Wow, that's a pretty big deal. And I said to her, I said, "Darling, when we get back from the Arnhem Land trip," I said, "I'll start going to 7 o'clock service with you." And she was really overjoyed. So we went and done the Arnhem Land trip. On the way back, Lynn started to show signs of being some sort of illness she had, and we just couldn't work it out. She was having trouble staying awake in the car while we were travelling. She used to fall asleep, which she'd never done before. She was starting to have night sweats, sweat at nights. Yeah, wake up in the morning, the pillow used to be wet. But she was still going for walks and long walks and that. And the first the first Sunday back, Lynn bounced up here to church. She was really enthusiastic about that church, and I had something on. It was genuinely on this time. I had to. It wasn't a lame duck excuse this time, and she wanted to meet the new minister. So she ducked in there, and James still talks about how she ducked in the church. He said, "I'm Lynn." The same, you must be the new minister. So, and then I think on the Wednesday, and I said, which was September the 13th, never forget that date. I woke up in the morning. I says, "Look, these antibiotics are not working. They haven't done anything for you." And then we found it, and and that day was the day she just showed the first signs of having some pain in the liver area. So I said, right, we will go up and see the GP. We saw the GP at 11 o'clock, and this time she was genuinely worried. She had an ultrasound test at 3 o'clock, and then that's when we got the first indication there was something really wrong, but they wouldn't say anything. And the GP said, just go straight down to Sutherland Hospital. We got down there about 4 o'clock. At 7 o'clock they'd had her programmed for a CAT scan, and so at 7 o'clock she went in for a CAT scan. I got back about 8:30. Terrible night, because I could see all the doctors standing around the counter in the emergency department, and when they saw me come in they were all looking at me talking, and I knew. I said, "Oh, they're talking about me." And then the head of the emergency department came up and said, "Are you Mr. Sheldon?" I said, "Yes." He said, come in and I want to tell Mrs. Sheldon the results of her CAT scan. Now, you hear about bedside manner and that. There was no bedside manner. He just said, "Mrs. Sheldon, you have multiple tumours in your liver, and you have advanced stage 4 cancer." Now, I didn't know what advanced stage 4 cancer, but I knew what he was saying was just horrible. And Lynn fell forward in the bed, and I nearly fell off the chair I was sitting on, and I got up and I grabbed her, and we knew straight away this was extraordinarily serious. Nobody would talk to us. Nobody would talk about prognosis or what's name. Although the head of the emergency department indicated that he didn't think she was going to be around for very long. Wow. And then on the Friday, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they gave her a blood transfusion. I don't know what happened during this blood transfusion, but she crashed for some reason. And there was doctors and resuscitation staff everywhere around the hospital, and they put me out into the foyer. And when I came back about half an hour later, the bed space where she was in the ward was empty, and I thought, "Oh, she's gone," but she hadn't. And then they took me up, and she was in a single room, and she was propped up, and she had all sorts of tubes and monitors on her. And they said, "Mr. Sheldon, you're staying here tonight. You'll be sleeping here tonight. We don't expect to be here in the morning." Wow. What's the name? And I said to myself, she hasn't done all the farewells and that. We'd only just started informing people. Yeah. And so that was the first night I prayed with absolute passion. What's the name? That we needed more time for Lynn to farewell everybody. So to say it was a bit of a hard night. Hard night was an understatement. I was up every 10 minutes just checking that she was still there, and now one of the more experienced night sisters came on. She says, "Mr. Sheldon, go to sleep." She said, "She's not going to die tonight." She said, "Look, I've seen a lot of this," and she's not dying. I was saying, anyhow, I did get a couple of hours sleep, and I got up in the morning, and she's awake, sitting up, and she says, "I want breakfast." I says, "Wait a minute." She was last minute. She told me she's not going to be here in the morning. Here she is, sitting up in the bed, asking for breakfast. And now that was the Saturday when you and James came in. I was home, and Lynn was still, and then I had the horrible job that day of telling her that she was going to die. It took me 2 to 3 hours to work up. I didn't know whether to tell her or not, but in the end, I based on that we'd been truthful to each other through the whole of our marriage. I said, I've got to tell her that she's dying. Yeah. It was unbelievable. Then all the family that we needed to gather, they just sort of came one by one, and friends that she wanted to see, they all turned up. Yeah, she was the glue of the family, so, yeah. I mean, to hurt our family, to pick one person to take out, it was like a bullseye. So I don't understand why it happened, but then I just started praying, and Lynn stayed around for after that another 5 weeks. She stayed around, although quality of life just dropped away to the point where she couldn't talk, and the pain she had was unbelievable. But she said she wasn't frightened of dying, but her big disappointment was being separated from me. Yeah, well, I slept in the hospital every night for the 5 weeks. In the last 12 days, I virtually never left the ward. Didn't do me much good. But
you weren't sleeping or eating?
No, I wasn't. But I wouldn't have changed it. Yeah. So. Yeah. But at the same time, James was helping me, and there's also the I forget his name. Bob, his name was. He was one of the Anglican ministers from the Guymere Church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's his name? He was over there, and then I really started understanding what it was all about, becoming a Christian.
At the same time as Lynn was dying,
you
were meeting with James to read the Bible.
Yep, I was saying he was starting to guide me, and he said after she goes, he would lead me through. And I was saying we started off with Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, and I was saying, in actual fact, I started reading it in the hospital when Lynn was unconscious for long periods of time, and I used to pray in there, and I used to pray for healing, but obviously her body finally yielded to the cancer. What's the name? I think trying to understand why these things happening, I think you just beat up on yourself. So you've just got to try and accept that it has happened in this broken world. And understanding that the world is full of sin, the world's a broken world, and there's a much better world for us to go to is then I went through the funeral week, which is, what can I say about it other than that? Just so much preparation and sadness and go, getting it all organised. And all I can say is that the eulogy, I was absolutely determined to do the eulogy, and I probably practiced it 40 times, and every time I used to break down the first paragraph. So when I come to give the eulogy at the church, I stepped up to the lectern, looked out there, first 3 words, and I felt my voice waver, felt the tears come. And a couple of the girls said, "Just look at us." And they just stood up the back and went like that. Just said, so uplifting. And all of a sudden, the voice came absolutely perfectly clear. Clarity of thought.
Wow.
Absolute clarity of thought. And I went straight through. I put all the inflections in where I wanted to, got the emotion where I wanted to. And when I finished, I just broke down. Yeah. So after that, I suppose the first day after the funeral was probably the worst day of my life. The second day wasn't much better. However, James came up and grabbed me and took me up to Scripture, and the people from the church rallied around, bought us meals, which were great. At the time, I didn't realise how great it was. And then I gradually started coming out. But those first 3 months were really tough. I didn't see any way forward. Yeah. So then life started settling down a bit, and and I seek counselling, and what's the name, and some good mates started rallying around. And then I did a trip across the desert. Vic Widman took me across the desert. That was really hard, that trip, because Lynn was always there in the car with me. But this time I had a bloke beside me in the car. Not quite the same. What's the name? But I had to do it. I had to do it. What's the name? And but I had a couple of good mates also got on the trip with me who are strong Anglicans from the Ingleburn Church. And they came across with me.
Yeah, okay. Right.
That's the name, so that helped.
And during that dark time, what was, you were meeting with James and reading the Bible, and what was happening in terms of your thoughts and beliefs about God and Jesus?
Well, I started really the first time to understand what being a Christian was all about. And I had a lot of people within the church, talking to me, and I was asking a lot of questions, and fundamentally understanding about faith in Jesus. You had to follow Jesus if you're going to go through that narrow gate. That's the name. And understanding, that we live in a broken world, and I used to have coffee with James on Tuesday, and we'd work for 2 hours, and quite passionate teaching. And it certainly helped me a great deal. And then I helped with scripture for a while, and then I could see that there was more to life, and I had to get on with it. And I started pulling myself together. And then I found a lady that was very good on grief counselling, and funny enough now that we have a relationship. Yeah, certainly a big year of emotions. I mean, one end you're right down the bottom, and next it did concern me about re-entering a relationship again, and I suppose the question is that I ask myself, and other people ask me, how soon should you enter a relationship? And I've given this a lot of thought, and I think I've come up with the answer. When you meet the right person. What's the name?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is no time limit, just when you meet the right person. Lynn, who's got the same name as my previous wife, which is we had a lot of things in common. She lost her husband to cancer. He was a Uniting Church minister, and we wanted to do travel, of course, and then our relationship is firmed up to the stage that we want to join in marriage. And if you're not looking forward to something greater in life, a spiritual life, and life after death, I mean, you really haven't got a lot. What's the name? It is most important. I'm very fortunate. My 2 daughters are real Christians, and they were Christians before I was. Both of them, from Lynn's insistence on going to Sunday school and getting them there, and that both became Christians without really anything to do with me. But no, Christianity is and serving God is the basis of my life now. And I know I've got a lot to learn. There's so much to learn. I've still got to learn, but and also we're looking for Lynn and I, although she's a Uniting Church chaplain and a very senior grief counsellor, we're still looking when we in our travels, we're looking for ways to serve. Okay. And we hope we find a church, Bible-based church like here at Engadine, because I think you set a pretty high standard here. Well, that's my view. I certainly learned a lot. Learning how to understand the Lord and understand His requirements. So it is going to be very sad, but we do have to return to this area on a regular basis because Lynn has a son at Menai with grandchildren, so we'll be returning. And I said, And I said, one little caveat, that 7 o'clock church at Engadine is on the cards.